Today on the We Invested podcast, we have Rafael Cortez, the founder and CEO of Post Group. Rafael, how are you doing today?
Pretty good, Wesley. Thank you very much for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for joining. And before we get started, would you mind letting the people know how they can find you on social media and the internet?
Yeah, no problem. I'm pretty active on social media. My Instagram is Rafael Cortez CEO. Actually, you can find me on Facebook and YouTube. I have a pretty active YouTube channel as well, Rafael Cortez CEO. So it's got to be the best place to hit me up.
Awesome, man. Awesome. So, let's just kind of start from the top, man, and talk a little bit
Yeah.
about your upbringing. Where are you from and where'd you grow up?
I'm originally from Yuma, Arizona. That's where I grew up. I used to be a firefighter down there. When I turned 19, I became a firefighter, and I was there for a number of years. And then I moved to Phoenix. So I've been in Phoenix. I've been in the Valley for the last what is it, 16 years, 17 years. And I got into real estate around 2009 on my first fix and flip. So it's been a minute, but yeah, it's been an interesting journey. Definitely.
For sure, man. And so, how would you say growing up in Yuma, kind of impacted your outlook on life and success?
I think it's both. It's a small town, so I wasn't even from Yuma. So I was even from a smaller town, but people don't know the smaller town. So I'm from San Luis, which is about 27 miles south of Yuma,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a very very small town. And and I think there's good things and bad things about growing up in a small town, right? The good thing is that you have that community. Everybody knows each other, and when you're growing up, I mean, I think it really creates a good sense of safety. So I was allowed to play around, really enjoy my childhood that way and whatnot. However, I think one of the challenges that I kind of grew up with, and I didn't know it was a challenge, it was really that the certain limitations, right? Certain beliefs in terms of, for example, financial thermostat, right? Everything around me or everybody around me who was succeeding was around $60,000, $70,000. So I thought that was the epitome of success, and I grew up with that threshold. So breaking through that when I jumped into real estate investments or entrepreneurship altogether was a challenge. So it's I think it impacted me in both good and bad, and in terms of how big my think was originally. um However, I had a very very nourished childhood, you know what I mean. So great memories. Just some stuff to work on after you move out to a big city.
Exactly. And I mean, and that leads to my next question, man. I mean, how was that transition for you from like a smaller town and then moving to a big city like Phoenix?
So I jumped into the fire department at 19. I was pretty young, and then, like I said, I stayed there for a few years, and then I decided to started my first business. So I started working on the business plan when I was around 21, and the first business was a non-emergency medical transportation business. So I mean, nothing to do with real estate. But I went all in. I mean, I figured if I was gonna make that work, it would have to be in a bigger place. So I left the firehouse and just kind of jumped into that business model that I was putting together, and really, I mean, I bet on the odds, right, of me being able to just kind of pull through. And the transition was heavy, dude. I mean, I left a well-paying job. I mean, I was making good money, 60 to $70,000 a year. I was 19 years old, 20 years, 19, 20, 21. And then the when I moved over, I mean, I kind of left everything that was that safety blanket for me. I went to work back in construction because it was the first gig I could find, but I really wanted to start that business, right? So I went to work, and the hours got crazy. I mean, I would go to my construction job at 3 a.m, come back to my apartment at 1 p.m, and then start working on spreadsheets and business models and projections and just about anything I could think of, in terms of building, trying to build a business and make it real. So the transition, to say the least, was very, very challenging, especially not having a lot of people in town, people that I
Mm-hmm.
could rely on or go back to for advice and that sort of thing. So, I mean, it's they when people usually talk about entrepreneurship, it's like taking the leap, right? A lot of times you jump and then you grow the wings on the way down. It's kind of literally how it happened kind of for me.
For sure, for sure. I mean, just speaking on entrepreneurship, I wanted to transition and talk more about the companies that you've grown and that you're working on and building today. And I want to ask, what is Post Group?
The Pulse Group. So I own 3 different businesses, and they're under the Pulse Group umbrella. But it's CEO Pulse. I'm an organizational psychologist now, so I do a lot of coaching and consulting in businesses in general. So it's business development, hiring, that sort of thing. But I also run an education business for wholesale real estate. So that falls into that CEO Pulse company. And then I'm an active wholesaler. I fix and flip. I do a lot of investments that way, and that's Pulse Capital. And then I also own a brokerage, which is Pulse Realty and Associates, but they all fall into that Pulse Group umbrella. So it's kind of neat. I mean, because they all start feeding each other at some point. So
yeah, man. No, that's an incredible business model, man. And before we jump into the business side of it, how did you get started in this industry? Like, what gave you that spark to want to make real estate a career?
I didn't start off with that in mind, man. I mean, it kind of happened because I wasn't really thinking too much about the path. When I was going through my 20s, right? I saw an opportunity and I took it, and then I would see something else and I would just kind of go for that, shoot from the hip. But when I launched the transportation business, I mean, it was rough for the first few years until I started getting, to monetize and actually get clients through the door. Eventually I was able to put some cash together, and I think I had about 100 grand or something like that. And I was like, I wanted to turn it, right? I wanted to do something. And my background was construction. I used to do concrete, masonry work and framing when I was going through college and high school and all that stuff. So I was like, I can fix a house. And I don't recommend anybody doing that, like taking on the fix and flip project by themselves. But I looked for this one house. I found, I mean, it was just a rehabber, right? This guy brought it to me. I bought it from this dude and I flipped it. Did everything wrong on it. Didn't leverage, I just didn't know what I was doing, right? So that happened, and I did two properties that way. By the third one, I started paying attention to the settlement statements, and I saw assignment fees of $15,000, $18,000, $20,000 on another one. I was like, what is this? What am I paying for here? 20K on the purchase of this property. Like, well, that's the fee that's going to that guy. And that's how I found out, about, the flipping paper, which is wholesaling, right? I was like, man, I'd rather do that than swing a hammer and actually go through the pains of doing a rehab. And I still had the other transportation business running. I sold that in 2014, but at that time I still had it. So I was running that business, and I was trying to do fix and flips and just all kinds of, I was scattered all over the place. Eventually, long story short, I sold the transportation business, did well on that, and went all into real estate.
So, I mean, you mentioned that while you were working in construction and working to save up money, you had about 100K, which to someone who's, I guess, never saved up that amount of money before, that seems like a huge sum of money. So when you first got started building your business and building this company out, was it ever intimidating to kind of invest in and play with this money that you just spent, these past few years saving up? Was that an intimidating
I was scared
for you?
shitless. Yeah, because I mean, like I said, my financial thermostat wasn't, I mean, to me it was unbelievable, right? That I could put something like that together. And what happened was that I was able to lock some state contracts on my transportation business, so they would pay me in big chunks, big chunks at time, and I was decent at keeping the overhead low. So I mean, I looked at my account and I had that, and I started getting nervous. I was like, shit, this is gonna go away. Something's gonna happen. I'm gonna lose this. I'm gonna lose the password to the login account, and then my money's gone. Like, I mean, I don't know. All kinds of crazy stuff was just running through my mind.
Right.
and I mean, I really just wanted to do it. And I think the reason I looked at real estate is because it's hammers and nails, right? So for blue collar or bootstrap, like, I mean, that's my background, really, bootstrap businesses. It's you want to feel it, man. Like, to me, I'm that guy. I wanted to feel that business. I wanted to feel that work that was going into it. And the stock market doesn't do that. I don't know anything about any of that stuff. So I mean, there's a billion other things that could have happened with that 100K, but I decided to buy this one property because that was my mindset. You know what I mean? That's how far my perception of wealth went. Like, okay, cool, I got 100K, buy this one beat up property in a shitty part of town, flip it, and then make 10K on it. So
I mean, yeah, man. I mean, it makes a lot of sense too, because you mentioned you were in construction.
Yeah.
And everybody needs housing. So I think that was a great decision by, investing in what you understand, investing in what you know, and investing in something physical that you can see, that you can touch, that you can put your hands on.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like this is the second time I heard you mention the word or the phrase financial thermostat.
Yeah.
What does that mean? What is that? That sounds interesting. That's my first time hearing that.
Financial thermostat. It's so we have psychological cues, right? And there's have you ever heard the phrase of whether you think you're right, whether you think you are, you think you're not, you're right? It's
I know what you mean.
I think it was Confucius that said it, but it makes so much sense, right? We adopt certain behaviors, certain thoughts, and certain limitations when we're growing up. Man, we don't grow up with we're not born with limitations. Like, it's not, we're not born thinking that we can only make 60K a year. We're not born thinking that we're gonna suck at football. Like, it doesn't happen. It's just limitations that we start to adopt, right? And in the context of where you grow up, it's gonna create a lot of that. It's gonna create a lot of those barriers. So to me, it was it's interesting to see this happen all the time, but you see it left or right. I mean, I'm sure you can think of examples, but your financial thermostat is pretty much set, right? So you take somebody, for example, that's used to a 9 to 5, used to making, I don't know, 50, 60, 70K, or you pick a number, but they're used to that number. Whenever they get hit with a big lump sum of cash, if it happens, they find a way to go back and reset to that 50K mark. It's crazy, but people don't, they won't go below, and they'll self-sabotage if they go above. It's interesting to break that barrier, that mindset barrier. It's really what it is. Mm-hmm. So I kept breaking that threshold of 60, 70, 80K. And then I would find myself back in that spot, dude. For like the longest time, for a year. So I was like, man, I'm trying to run a business. I'm busting my butt here. And then how do I always end up in the same spot? My financial thermostat was just, a little off.
So, I think that's a very interesting point, man, and a great perspective to bring up, something that I believe is very true. But what would you say are some of the steps that you took to kind of break through those mental barriers to help you kind of reach new heights? Like, what are some things that you did personally to make that escape?
So one thing to understand, right, about that kind of thing, and learned behaviors or classical conditioning, is that it comes to us because of our surroundings. Yep. So you start changing your surroundings, at least the ones that you're more in contact with, right? I'm not saying forget about your friends. I'm not saying forget about your family. Don't talk to anybody, ever again. No, right. I'm big against that kind of stuff, right? But we are an average of the 5 people that we hang out, with the most, right? Or that we're exposed to the most. So finding mentors, at this point in time, it was something that I would have, automatically just shut down. When somebody said, "Oh, I don't know, pay for, so somebody teaches you this," I was like, "No, I can figure it out. I'll go online, and I'll go to YouTube or whatever." Yeah. And that's fine, right? At the beginning, it's fine to get exposed, but if you really want to make a dent, it's not just about the information. It's about the people that you're surrounding yourself with. It's about the perspective that comes along with that. I can't tell you how much I spend on a yearly basis now just to sit down, not even get coached, but to sit down at certain masterminds, right? And rub shoulders with people who are doing a lot bigger things than I am. That kind of stuff will impact your financial thermostat. That kind of stuff will impact your perspective, right? And possibilities. And it's crazy, bro. But you'll run into some people who are just absolutely killing it, right? It's like, man, like I know the stuff that I got is way better than this. How, why am I not in that space? But again, it's perspective. It's just, so to me, one of the best things that's giving me results, it's really putting myself in those circles.
Understood, man.
Yeah.
What would you say are some of if there are any additional benefits that you could think of from stepping outside of your comfort zone, expanding and increasing your network, and just being around people who are, I don't want to say better than you, but like operating at a different level than you are? What would you say are some of the benefits that you've personally seen from that?
Some of the benefits, I mean, heck, it's the crazy thing. And here, so everybody has a superpower. Everybody has a talent, man.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I know some savages when it comes to marketing, some people who
Right.
are just absolutely, amazing when it comes to displaying properties, and because they have, they have that joy in that craft, right? There's a lot of stuff that I have to do because of running the businesses that I don't necessarily enjoy, right? So I'll plug somebody who's better at me than or better than me at that, whatever role, and then plug them in there and let them operate. Now, what happens when you put yourself in rooms like this, you're going to be mesmerized. It's kind of like watching Instagram and the highlights of everybody's life, right? You're going to be mesmerized by the person who goes on stage and then they're saying everything that they're doing. It's like, man, this guy's a freaking rock star, but they suck at 50 other things that you know how to do better. So understanding that we as individuals have talent, right? We see the world in a completely different way than the next person. That in itself is an X factor. Wrapping my head around the idea that I was the value, as opposed to what I had to offer that point in time, really was a game changer. And what that does is it creates opportunities. And you never know, man. You never know what kind of opportunities, are gonna just flourish, right? For example, I was talking to one of the guys that runs one of the masterminds that I'm in, and we were just kind of spitballing on something for like the Latino community and putting. I mean, there's about 5 or 6 big players who can tap into that Latino space just because of culturally, language, and all that stuff. And there's something really big brewing that it wasn't even in the radar 2 months ago. So you never know, right, what kind of opportunity you're going to come across, even if you feel like you're the dumbest guy in the room, which I love. That, I mean, I love to be the dumbest guy in the room, honestly. I look for that. But yeah, it's perspective, it's opportunities, and it's really squatting up, man. You're leveling up with other people, man. You know that the tenacity is there because they've made it somehow, some way in a different area that maybe you're still working at.
Man, I think it's really interesting, like, to hear that you can like work extremely hard, you can work day and night, put in 18 hours a day, but at a certain point, in order to level up or in order to gain more wealth or build more wealth, it all becomes a mindset thing.
No way.
Which is crazy. It's like a mental thing that you have to understand, or that has to click in order to become that millionaire or make 250,000 a year. It's about at some point working smarter and not necessarily just doing these 18-hour days.
Yeah.
But something interesting that I want to ask, man, and learn more about is, how is it possible to make money in real estate without buying properties?
So the best, I mean, like I said, I do a couple of different things, right? But if I were to start all over again, I would go with wholesaling real estate. Basically what that is the skill set of finding and motivated sellers and negotiating properties. Like one of the things that may come to mind is like, well, why would somebody sell me their property for less than retail value? But it's crazy, man. When you start thinking about circumstantial distress, for example, people get relocated all the time, right? People get divorced all the time. Probate, happens, and people need to, dispose of the property, repairs, and whatever. There's a lot of stuff that can't factor into a traditional sale. and that's where wholesaling comes in, right? So we're in that space. We're looking for a very small amount of people. I mean, call it, if 100 people wanted to sell their properties, maybe 5 are going to be a fit for us. So it's a small number when it comes to the grand scheme of things, but there's enough opportunity out there, for that kind of stuff. But basically what happens is you negotiate a property with the seller for under ARV, which is retail value, right? So if a property is worth $200,000, you come in, then you get it for 140, 150. Factor in some, expenses on rehab costs and whatnot, and you can sell that deal to a cash buyer who's going to come in and negotiate it. So the challenge really comes in marketing, right? It's at that point you're really a marketing company for distressed properties. That's really what you become. But yeah, it's getting paid through an assignment fee, which is you're selling the actual contract, not the property itself. Like that's the legality behind it, right? You're selling your vested interest in that contract. And it's interesting, dude, because I mean, when I didn't believe this, right, until it happened to me, or until I actually saw it on the settlement statements of the guys that I was paying, $15,000, $20,000, and I was making 10 on a flip, just because they didn't know better. I mean, I overspent on rehab expenses, and just rookie flipper, right? But they had their numbers down. So anyways, it's a really good strategy. I mean, that's where I would start. Another thing that happens when you're in front of the line when it comes to figuring out what you want to do with properties is that you got first dibs, right? So if you want to take it down, add it to your portfolio, I mean, structure a creative financing deal, and that's your imagination there as far as deal structure is the limit. So,
man, I've heard people explain wholesaling, and I've had some close encounters and some close relationships with wholesalers and things of that nature. But I've never heard anyone describe it the way you did and kind of put it in those terms. As far as wholesaling, at one point it basically turns into marketing and how well you can market these properties. So you turn into a marketing firm, which I think is also another interesting perspective to have on it. Because I mean, I feel like you're 1,000% right. Once you make these deals, or once you find these deals and locate these deals, now it's about how well can you market it and get it out there to the right buyers or to the right people.
Yeah. Connecting the dots. I mean, it's really what
exactly.
I mean, we get when it comes to wholesaling, bro, we get paid for not the commodity, but the solution.
Yeah.
So in a fix and flip or a rehabber, right? They're going to get paid for the asset, which is the property. If they do a good job, they make the house pretty and all that stuff. Like, it's pretty pragmatic, right? It's pretty, I mean, you can see it, you can feel it, you can make it pretty and get paid for that. When it comes to wholesaling, we're getting paid to solve problems. People come to us because or they go with us because there's an issue they can't resolve. They can't list the property otherwise, with an agent and get top dollar. Otherwise, they'd be doing that. So it's either a time issue, it's a physical distress condition issue, it's a circumstantial issue, and a lot of times, man, it's a combination of all of them. So I mean, the interesting thing is, I mean, we've walked into some properties that, I mean, you can't, maybe you have 6 inches between walls because everything else is cluttered, and you have like these little, just kind of like pathways to get from the living room to the kitchen because the house is just packed with, it's somebody's a hoarder or something. They have, this condition, or I mean, a lot of people are just old and they can't clean up the properties, and they start, falling from underneath them. And I mean, that's where we come in. Like something like that, you can't put on the market. You know what I mean?
So how does your wholesaling business blueprint culture program benefit potential clients or customers that may want to get involved in wholesaling and want to get started in wholesaling? So
the coaching program, it covers everything, right? So from 0 to 1, if you've never done deals, We cover the basics on how to, come in and then, work out the deals. So it's a 90-day training with continuous education. So people have unlimited access to come back to the coaching calls and that sort of thing. That's kind of like the nuts and bolts, but it walks you through the entire process. Basically what I've done and I started wholesaling, actually tapped into wholesaling around 2012, right? A couple of years after I started doing fix and flips. And what I've done since then is, it's a 6-stage process. So there's certain things that you have to do as you go through that 6-stage process. You source the leads, you convert the leads, meaning you pre-qualify. You have to go through the acquisitions process, which is 3. And then 4 is going to be your dispo. So how do you market the property, package it, put it out to your buyers? And then that's usually where most businesses stop, right? Or most wholesale operations. But my background is business systems, right? So I don't want to get stuck in the hustle, man. I want to be able to step away from a business once I build it. And stages 5 and 6, which is measuring and improving, like that's where those come in. We track KPIs, and then we go through improvement sessions to make sure that we can improve upon the whole thing as we go along. So it's the program itself walks you through the basics of how to get a deal done, how to go through the step 1, step 2, step 3, right? It's pretty pragmatic. It's pretty linear. But it also helps you to take a mind shift from that hustler mentality to the entrepreneur mindset. And actually, I battle, or I tackle on a lot of the things that I battled as I was, going through my entrepreneur beginnings, which is, personal mindset limitations, financial thermostat kind of issues, the belief that we can actually come in and do it. Once you get proof of concept, bro, like once you get your first deal and then you see that $15,000, $20,000, $30,000 check come through the door, you're like, holy crap, that's like half a year's salary right there on one deal. Everything, like something breaks in a really, really good way inside your head, man. You can do it all over again. So the main point of the wholesaling business blueprint is to create an infrastructure that's repeatable and consistent, because that's really what matters.
Why is that important, though, to have these systems and processes in place? How does that benefit a business owner or an entrepreneur?
So, you can be self-employed, right? You can have an LLC and then be self-employed. But picture this, man, you take a vacation. I don't know, you're gone 2 weeks from your business. And then if your business breaks or nothing is happening, or there's stuff that's on fire because you took 2 weeks away, do you really have a business? Or do you have, at that point you're self-employed, right?
Right.
So I think we as entrepreneurs, we jump into this space because we're looking, most people, and at least this was the case for me, right? We're trying to get out of that survival state. We're trying to get out of that space where we're making ends meet. We want to thrive. We want to, have financial freedom. But what is financial freedom without the time freedom to enjoy it? Right? Exactly. That's where systems and processes come in. It's not really, it doesn't sound too sexy when it comes to business talk, right? What sounds sexy? The Lambos and the vacations and the, all this and all that, the flashy things, right? But the reality is that if you put emphasis on building your infrastructure or following a path that's proven and tested, and you start plugging people into it, you can empower a team, right, to do the work, to do the things that we suck at. There's certain things that I can pull them off, but I don't enjoy them, right? So why would I spend 8 hours, 6 hours, 4 hours, even 1 hour of my day doing the stuff that I hate? It doesn't make sense, right? It's if it's a means to an end, it's understandable, but not to be caught in that wheel, because then you might as well stay in a 9 to 5. So systems and processes, really, that's what gives us the freedom to do that kind of stuff, right? And consistency. So think about it this way, man. We have, like, I just gave you, for example, 6 stages, right? During those 6 stages, there's different things that happen. There's different roles and responsibilities for employees or people who are going to be handling, those specific tasks. Now, with that comes accountability. If you don't have accountability in any business, you're never going to be able to delegate stuff. So it's one of those things that one thing leads to another. So you have a system and a process, and that leads to accountability. That leads to the ability to delegate. That leads to the ability to automate if you can't delegate that particular thing for whatever reason. You know what I mean? So So yeah, it's definitely crucial to have that kind of stuff. Otherwise, you're gonna be caught in that hustle and that rat race forever, even if you have an LLC.
You have a great business model that I feel covers real estate from beginning to end. So as far as the education piece,
Mm-hmm.
the wholesaling piece, you also have your own brokerage. And I forgive me if I'm missing any other branches or divisions that you have in your company. But what I want to ask is, and before I ask that question, they all of your businesses feed into each other and help each other grow. So how did you go about learning your business IQ and gaining this business acumen to create or implement such a great business model like that?
It's I like the questions, man. You ask really good questions. um, the It's a combination, bro, between failure and putting myself in the right rooms. It really has. It really has been that, and getting the right mentors. For example, when I started wholesaling, I started listening to podcasts, right? And one of the first podcasts was Flip Through Freedom. So I started talking to Sean Terry. Eventually, he became my mentor, and I started working acquisitions with him when I sold my other business. So I got my feet wet at the top, tip of the sphere, per se. During that process, though, I mean, I was aiming and shooting at other stuff, and I failed a lot in terms of business and launching stuff that it looked like a great thing, but it was really a shiny object. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think as entrepreneurs, man, we got to have that resiliency, right? We have to have that understanding that a failure is not really a failure. It's just it's a way of not, going about. Um, and I think I've learned, some of my best lessons from just trials that didn't necessarily pan out. So I had to make a pivot. I had to get creative. I was vested in it. Something had to happen, and those lessons, bro, they stick. They stick. It's not like when you read something in a book, you're going to retain a very, very small, percentage of, whatever you read in the book. Right. When you have somebody explaining it to you or a mentor, you're going to retain a bigger portion of it, but you don't retain the whole thing. You're still going to forget things. But when you go through the experiential, process, and you feel that pain, and when you say, "Oh shit, man, I really boned that out," that remains, right? That remains and really creates an engram that doesn't let you forget it, right? So it's a lesson. I mean, I think we have to understand that as we go through this process, man, there's gonna be bumps and bruises. If you decide to be an entrepreneur, it sounds flashy, but it's really long hours. It's a lot of commitment. You have to figure out the difference between being interested and being committed, right, to something. And being committed means that you're going to surround yourself with the right people, that you're going to put in the work, take the actions, and not just, make it look pretty on paper, man, but taking risks and shots. I mean, you're going to have failures inevitably as you go along. And I think that's really what creates that thicker skin, you know? So it builds, I mean, you're going to build the IQ one way or another.
So, I mean, you're no stranger to entrepreneurship. You started your first business at 21. So is this an interest and a skill set kind of that you've always had, that you were born with, or is it more of an interest that developed over time and something that you just wanted to try out as you got older?
I've always been curious, but I didn't, like I said, I wasn't, growing up, I was always in the present, right? I never, dude, bro, I wish I could tell you otherwise, but I can't remember a time when I was in my teens that I sat down to think about my future. Like, what do I want to do? I have kids that think about, I want to go to this college and I want to do, have this career, and I'm going to start planning because in 3 years I'm going to get that scholarship. Like that was not me. I wish it was, but it wasn't.
Me too, man.
Yeah. So it's like, oh, well, that looks cool. Let's try that.
Yeah.
I mean, I really became a firefighter because I was having dinner. I happened to get lucky one time. I was at a party and the guy sitting next to me was a fire chief. And I was graduating high school, pretty soon. I didn't know. I was like, all right, I think I got to do something. And the guy, I talked to him and like, what do you do? I've always been, I always talk a lot. he said he was a fire chief, and I was, okay, cool, that sounds interesting. Tell me more. And anyways, long story short, I went to the firehouse, I liked it, and then I jumped into that space. The reason I became an entrepreneur, something similar. Fast forward a couple of years, I was already in the fire service, and I was having an illegal beer at Applebee's because I wasn't even 21 yet. But it was me and a couple other firefighters and one of the captains, and we started talking. And he said, you know what, we have 24 on, 24 off, or the shifts, right? So we go and spend 24 hours at the firehouse and 24 hours off. Like, there's plenty of time to do something else. I was like, oh yeah, that's right. And I mean, it's crazy, but I hadn't seen that opportunity there. So he teed it up. He's like, a really good business would be this. And then, I don't know, we just started, I got into that train of thought, and we started bouncing around ideas. So from that conversation, dude, if you fast forward a couple of years again, he launched the business that he was talking about. Now it's successful business in Yuma. He's got multiple places now, and then I launched that transportation business, which I ended up selling for north of $1 million in 2014. So it's really, I mean, it really was a matter of seeing it and then not being afraid. I mean, just pulling the trigger, right? If it doesn't stick, it doesn't stick. But luckily it did. so yeah.
Man, that's incredible, man. Just having a chance to, the opportunity and the experience of building a successful business, which was like one of your first businesses, the early businesses, early companies, and then getting a chance to sell it for, like you said, north of $1 million. I mean, what was that moment like for you? How did it feel? Like, what were you going through psychologically, just to know, like, man, something I built from scratch is now worth, this amount of money?
Bro, I grew up in a mobile home, dude. It's not like, again, my humble beginnings were just freaking me out. You know what I mean? It's not like I wasn't used to, I bootstrapped the heck out of that thing. And just the cool thing is that the business is still running. So the guy that bought it from me actually doubled it in size. He doubled the fleet, and he's doing really good. He's in Phoenix, so I run into the vehicles all the time, and I see him like on the freeway, and like they at this point they've taken over a good portion of that particular industry in town. And it's surreal, really, because I mean, now I think about it, and it's like, man, those people are working at that company because of this thing that I really just grinded on in my small bedroom apartment, and working from the kitchen. So if you put in the work, man, inevitably, like, stuff's gonna pan out, right? It's a matter of understanding and believing that it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, right? We're walking in that direction. If you're walking in the direction of that degree of freedom that you want to achieve, if you're walking in that direction of the degree of stability, of happiness, of joy that you want to reach, like, you're gonna get there. It's just a matter of not quitting, right, through the process. I mean, there was plenty of times, bro, trust me, like, when I just wanted to throw in the towel, like, what the hell am I doing? and yeah, but I mean, it was just insane, right? A big win. So yeah.
How do you define success as an entrepreneur?
Owning my options.
That's dope. I like the way you put that.
Owning my options, bro. I mean, I think it comes back again, going back to that survival mode, right? When we're in survival mode, we don't really, and what I mean by survival mode is, we're trying to make ends meet. If we stop working, we get off the bike, the whole thing just, comes down, crashes, and you have no business and that sort of thing. So, but when you're in survival mode, it's hard to be creative. It's hard to find, even find the you, man. I got lost while building that first business. I got burned out I think I was 26, 27. And I mean, there was a period of time where I was in, like, I'm normally a pretty happy guy. And that guy was nowhere to be found, bro. I mean, it's just, I was grinding so heavy, and I realized that, okay, I was generating cash, but I wasn't owning my options. I couldn't step away from the business. I couldn't, time with the family was just not even a thing. And sometimes I get into that track because I'm trying to perform something or pull, produce something. Right. But it's seasonal now. It's not a must. So I think that's important to understand, like what does that mean? And everybody has, their own definition of it, right? To me, if I have a smile on my face and I feel like I'm empowering people, and I still can own my options, it's a win, man. I'm winning in my book.
We were talking about earlier, before we started recording, that you are a podcaster as well, and you also have a super dope setup.
Thanks.
Is the name of the podcast Wholesaling Inc.?
No, so I was part of the Wholesaling Inc. Company, and no, but the podcast is CEO Pulse, the CEO Pulse podcast.
Pulse. Okay. So with CEO Pulse podcast, what are some of the benefits that you've seen from, just getting the chance to connect with the people and putting out this content to help people, man, and resonate with your audience?
Dude, I'm telling you, it's like, if anybody out there is thinking of putting a podcast together, like, don't think about it, just do it. It's a hack. It's really a hack to pick people's brains. And just the level of insight, bro, the level of insight that you get having deep conversations. It just, it puts every conversation in a different context. For example, if you and I met, I don't know, at a restaurant or something, we would probably have a way more, superficial conversation than this. This is the first time we speak, right? However, the context of the podcast, the space itself, allows us to go deep. So the lessons learned, man, they're insane. Not to mention the caliber of people that I've been able to have on there and just pick their brains. Gino Wickman, the author of Traction. I was like, I've been a groupie of that guy for years, bro. Came on the podcast. We had a really cool conversation, and it's just, it's worth, it's invaluable, honestly. Like, you can't put some number to that, I think.
How would you like for people to remember you as well as the companies that you've built?
Empowered. Not me empowered, but I empowered people. It's a good question. I never thought of that, but it's really the I feel like inspiration goes far, right? Motivation goes a long way as well. But when you really empower those around you, I'm talking you, and in my space, right? Everything I do in my companies really leads me to empowering people on a regular basis, if you think about it. So the way that I run my fix and flip business, I empower my team to do their thing, right? I create training materials. I create, I let them breathe in terms of their skill sets, their talents, and I don't micromanage. I empower them to operate. Same thing with my students, right? I'm empower them with everything that I know that I got to create a different level of life, right? The level that they want to reach. But at the end of the day, when you empower somebody, you give them not just, the inspiration or the motivation, you give them the actual tools and the, I think more than anything, the click on that mindset that's required. Bro, it's such a beautiful thing to see when that happens. It's almost like you can hear the pop when somebody just gets it. Like, boom, okay, cool. I got this. I have, I believe now. And the belief is in themselves, not really, the content or the process or, whatever. It's in themselves. And when somebody believes in themselves because they're empowered, bro, the sky's the limit, man. The ripple effects, who knows where the heck, those are going to end up. Right. But it's just, it's cool to plant that seed of empowerment in somebody and then watch it just flourish. Yeah.
What does the future of Pulse Group, CEO Pulse, look like to you?
The future, I think right now I'm in a really good space. So I've been building this thing or the collective, right? The collective of the companies for the last, maybe 8-10 years. But I want to do more of the same, just, bigger. It's really, what's in store. One of the things, I'm getting more out there in terms of speaking engagements and spreading the message of entrepreneurship. The hustle is the season. It's not a business strategy is one of the things that I always, kind of, put out there and use as a platform. But it's, it's growing that space. You know what I mean? It's just empowering more people as far as agents that join the brokerage, growing the student base, growing the investments. One really cool thing that's happening, and it just, I wasn't really planning on that. Like, there's a lot of deals that come through our pipeline through Pulse Capital, because students that hadn't done deals before are now locking deals. And they, they're coming back to joint venture partner with my other companies. So it's just like this really cool atmosphere. We're working a 75 property portfolio right now in Florida, just full of opportunity, right? Because I empowered somebody, and then they went out and did this, and now we're just partnering up. Everybody eats. So yeah,
that's
more
incredible,
of that, more of that magic. That's what I want.
Exactly, man. And it's like you're seeing that compounding effect like in real time, so
yeah,
that's incredible, man. And you've definitely accomplished incredible things, and to just see what you're doing and what you're building is remarkable, man, and it's impressive to watch. And I'm definitely a fan and a supporter.
Thanks, brother.
Man, thank you for your time today, and thank you for giving me the chance to pick your brain, man, and just learn what the bosses do.
Of course, brother. Thank you so much for having me, man. It's been fun.
Awesome, man.